Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I just have a few Pittcon announcements for you. The first round of booth assignments is currently in progress, so if you have not already completed your booth space agreement, please do so soon to ensure that your company is in this first round of placements on the floor. You can find our booth space agreement online at www.pittcon.org and click on the Exhibit tab. Our promotional opportunities are also available for purchase in the Exhibitor dashboard, including a new giant touchscreen iPad that will be in the redesigned park area. So that's something you might want to check out. So we're going to get started with today's webinar entitled Getting Meaningful Return from Your Exhibiting Investment, presented by David Safe, who is the Chief Instigator at GES. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to type them into the chat or the questions box throughout the presentation, and we'll try to get to those. And then we'll also have some time at the end to field some questions. So with that being said, I'm going to hand the presentation over to David.
Thank you very much, Kim, and good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to share with you ways to get meaningful return. Just a quick word of background. So I do work for GES, which is the contractor and the partner with Pittcon on orchestrating the show. I head up a division called MarketWorks, and MarketWorks provides both strategy and marketing for corporate marketers, trade show managers like yourselves, as well as for organizers to drive the right traffic, to create the right experiences, and to make sure you're driving the right results with your business partners at your companies. And I'll just say briefly, my background, I spent 7 years working for an exhibit house where I spent a lot of my time really partnering with exhibitors on planning and creating meaningful and impactful campaigns for target attendees. And then for the last 6 years, I've been working both with trade show managers, marketers like yourselves, and with organizers as part of GES, leading our MarketWorks division. So enough about me. Let's talk about next year. So March 5th in Chicago at McCormick Place, there will be 2,000 education sessions, 13,000 attendees. There'll be 850 plus exhibitors, folks from all over the world. So the question is going to be, how do you create success? And let's face it, we all have stakeholders. Well, from whatever company we sit in and whatever organization, whether you're profit or for-profit or not-for-profit, your stakeholders want to know where are the hot leads, where can they get increases in customer spend for your services or your products. How do you move the needle on the way they perceive your organization today? How can you increase the media attention? Now, media is a funny word these days, right? It used to be we had this group called the media. They were the trade magazines or they were the publishers. But that's really different today, right? Anybody can create a blog. Many people go onto LinkedIn and they create posts they share in LinkedIn. You can see it through all the different platforms, whether it's Twitter or it's LinkedIn or Facebook. Anybody can create media attention. The question is, how are you capitalizing on those media opportunities? Are you gaining intelligence about what your competitors are doing at Pittcon or not at Pittcon? And what are the opportunities for you to develop new partnerships, understand new distributors, or even recruit new employees while you're at this event? And, well, at the end of the day, how are you going to exceed your objectives while still managing on a limited budget? So really today I'm hoping to arm you with some ideas on how you can be more successful. Now, I should say that I will be going through this. You are on mute, but you are welcome to submit questions through the chat function. And then if I have an opportunity during the session, I'm happy to answer those questions, or certainly at the end, we'll open the lines and make sure we answer any questions you might have. So this might look familiar to you, particularly those of you who own an iPhone. And the iPhone 7 just came out a couple of weeks ago. I know that my daughter was asking me to upgrade, which was an interesting conversation. But really the phenomenon we've seen for the last 10 years with Apple is these lines that form in advance of distributing a phone. And it's all about being there, being the first, being the one who's able to grasp this new technology and be on the forefront of what's going on. The question is, how are you going to get attendees to line up for you, and not just on the day you release, but to create that anticipation prior to the release? How are you going to make your presence memorable? Now, most of us on the call probably have been to an Apple store or have been by an Apple store. It is a very simple space. It doesn't have a lot of clutter on it. It's very simply organized. But it's that idea that when you see that symbol and you see that space, you know what it stands for. How are you going to make your presence, your impact at Pittcon that much more memorable? How will the attendees find what they want? So too often, companies that go to trade shows and exhibitions lay out all of their products and services. They've got lots of activities and lots of stuff happening, but the question is not what you offer. The question is, how do you enable the attendee to get what they need? Now, in the upper left-hand corner, very simply, Apple lays out its products and allows the attendee to go to the table that most fits what they're trying to buy that day or what they're trying to understand that day, whether it's the iMac or the iPhone or the iTouch. Each table has a family of devices that you can migrate to. That's about self-exploration and about getting help. On the bottom right-hand corner with the Genius bar, that's about meeting with an expert. And I know this seems simplistic, but at the end of the day, where we're rushing, we're organizing so many different events, how do we provide a simple experience that's really oriented around the attendee needs as opposed to what we want to say or what we want to do with the attendee that day? And then there's the staff. And I am going to spend a good portion of time talking about staff today. So if you feel by the end of the hour, my gosh, David has a lot of opinions about staff, it is, in my opinion, the single most important thing and decision you will make now in the next 5 months about your experience. Who you bring, how they behave, and what they do with your attendees that will make or break the experience. For those of you who have been to an Apple store, you probably know the whole experience of walking in, being greeted, being asked a simple question about what your needs are, and then being directed and then wireless communication to other staff to help address your need. I don't always get an answer right away when I walk into an Apple store, but I always know that they're trying to work together as a team to quickly get me the right person with the right answer, with the right perspective, possibly even the right personality, so that I walk out of there a satisfied customer. Now, not every Apple employee, I'm sure, is perfect, just like not every employee that you might have at your organization is perfect. But I'll just say it now, and I'm going to repeat it later. A commitment to Pittcon is a commitment in the future of your business and the future success of your entity, your company, or your nonprofit organization. Your staff will make or break that entire experience. You can have the most beautiful booth, the most amazing marketing, the most immersive experience, but if the staff are not part of that entire experience, and I mean not when they show up at the booth, but when they leave their homes to go to Chicago, to go to Pittcon, whether they live in downtown Chicago or they live out in Anaheim, we need to make sure that the people that you recruit to come and work at Pittcon are the people who are dedicated and committed to being there, and they're all in for not just that one day, those couple of days you're going to be there. Now, a lot of people say, geez, I'm a trade show manager, I'm a marketer, I'm an event specialist, whatever it is. Let me tell you what I describe this business as. You are the CEO. You are the CEO. If you think about it, in the days leading up to Pittcon opening, it is basically an empty hall. It has nothing but air in it. And over the course of a couple of weeks, we will fill that with a series of company footprints in which you will set up your headquarters for 4 or 5 days. You'll staff it with the folks in your booth. You'll have other folks going to the educational sessions, going to the networking sessions. You'll be setting up your footprint, and you are the CEO. You are going to make or break the at Pittcon, and you're responsible for return on investment, return on objectives. And this is not a session about these formulas, but just I want to give you context here, right? Return on investment is the profits that's gained from having your sales less your cost of sales divided by your cost of investment. Now, many companies who go to Pittcon and go to other trade shows, that's not realistic because it takes long lead times to really groom the customer to buy more or to even buy in the first place. Then there's return on objectives, and that would be the total expected dollars from profitable leads less your show costs. There are other objectives you can have from the show. Sometimes it's about changing impressions. It could be recruiting partners. So these are some things that people do use to measure effectiveness. I want to give you a couple of other measures for you to think about in terms of setting your objectives. So I do think it's important. Most entities are generating leads or engagements or opportunities at Pittcon 17. Now, you can see on this table on page 8, I keep it really simple, really simple. And if you haven't done this before, if you've done it in the past, you've got 5 or 6 criteria, I urge you to really get it down to 3 things. One is the target customer description. So maybe it's their project size, maybe it's their budget, maybe it's the number of researchers they have, some definition that differentiates an A lead from a B lead. Now you can see I don't have other leads here, it's all other, because if they're not an A lead or a B lead, they're probably in the mix that you have to keep grooming. The second column is on services needed. So where the first describes the attribute of the attendee, the second is, what do you think they're interested in, right? It should be a couple of your key services that differentiate you from other exhibitors at the show floor. And the third is the timing for action. So people often ask me, how can you measure effectiveness? And what I say is, if you're trying to relate effectiveness and performance, it should be something, an action that can be completed within 10 to 12 weeks post-event. In other words, either they issue an RFP for your services, they take a meeting, they ask for a brochure, and they do it within, you can see 6 weeks here or 3 months, no more than 3 months, if you're trying to tie back to the success of Pittcon. I would urge you, be specific, make sure these are objective, meaning that there's no interpretation of whether a person meets the criteria or not, and they're measurable. The second area is change of perception. So some entities want to change the way your company is perceived, your offering is perceived, the way your culture is perceived, or what people want to learn. So what are those specific things you're hoping that target attendees will do when they interact with you? Now notice I keep using the word target attendees. I mean, let's face it, with 13,000 attendees, even if you staff your booth with the best staff every minute of the show, the chances are you won't hit 13,000 people. And arguably, you don't need to hit 13,000 people. You need to hit a certain subset of that. I will tell you the 2 questions that I urge exhibitors to test after the event. So if you did a post-event survey or an exit survey as people leave your booth, the 2 questions, and this is something I want you to keep in mind as you're doing planning. There are 2 fundamental things you want to make sure get done with your target attendees. 1, did they learn something? Did they learn something? So did they learn something new? And 2, as a result of being with you for whatever period of time during Pittcon, are they likely to include you in a new RFP, a new opportunity, a new discussion? Those are the 2 fundamental success factors, because if they don't learn something new, chances are they're not going to move the needle of business with you. And if you did teach them something new or they did learn something new, chances are they will include you in a future opportunity. So think through those opportunities, those goals, and be really clear about that. Now, once you've got those definitions, it's really the next phase is to focus on generating those profitable leads, right? So you identify the target attendee, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then it's all about pre-show engagement, at-show reminders, a memorable exhibit experience, a meaningful conversation, and trained staff. So let's walk through those. So first, your target attendee. So these are the attendee types that attend Pittcon. This comes from Pittcon itself, and these are the different groups of professionals. My question to you is, which 2 or 3, maybe it's just 1, maybe it's a subset of 1 of these groups, are your target attendees, the ones you really want to connect with, because that's where you want to focus your energies. And then how would you describe the target attendee? So your primary target, size of organization, number of years experience, maybe their title, maybe their decision-making authority. Think about not a lot of criteria, but a couple of criteria to help differentiate and help your staff on the day differentiate between the people coming to their booth. The second is the second priority attendee. These are people that are still important to your business, but they're not your primary focus. So where would you want to spend some of your time? Now let's face it, on peak times in the show, you will be conflicted between the person standing in front of you and the person passing by the booth. So 2 things to think about. 1, if you don't know who your target is, chances are you're going to speak to everyone, even though not everyone drives your success from the show. 2, it is important even now during a quiet period to think about how to disengage a non-priority attendee. So the way I like to think about this is every attendee at Pittcon deserves a fulfilling experience, but not every attendee at Pittcon deserves your undivided attention. And so you need to think about other elements, usually smaller self-exploration elements, that will allow a non-target to be on their way and learn about your organization, but not take up valuable time of yours or your staff's. Make sure you focus on the target attendee. Now, pre-show engagement. There's a lot here, a lot here. And let me just say that pre-show has already started. Reg for attendees just opened up 2 days ago, and it's going to crescendo. And there will be some peak periods, right? There'll be peak periods when people are going to register. And it used to be, you didn't have to really worry about attendees because they didn't have smartphones, they didn't have cell phones, and it really was show up in the city and go to the show and see each other. It's a totally different world these days, right? And people don't have a lot of time, and they do have a lot of demands on their time. So the question now is, how is someone going to put you on their schedule of activities as opposed to just serendipitously dropping by your booth? So a couple of ideas here. One, a calling campaign. Now this could be to your target attendees, it could be through obtaining the reg list or partnering with others, where you call your clients and prospects and invite them to meet you either at your booth or meet them at some of the networking and connect with them. Calling campaigns, very personalized. I don't believe you have to connect with everybody. You don't have to call them 4 times to talk to them, but to reach out and show your interest. It's also, as long as you're reaching out to them, a good time to ask a question or two about what's top of their mind or what topics are challenging them, to either invite them to a meeting at your booth or suggest other educational sessions that you think will be beneficial to them. Now, Pittcon also offers the ability to provide you with conference brochures with your booth number sticker on it that you can either hand out or mail to your clients and prospects. So that's a great way to get the word out about Pittcon, but also to really raise awareness of your presence at the show. You can imagine a little handwritten note on it as well. Is a great way to say, I'm thinking about you, and here's a great forum for you. Direct mail. Direct mail has not changed. Probably the one big change with direct mail is we all receive so little direct mail that the relevance and the open rates on direct mail are actually a lot higher than they used to be, and people have gotten very creative with direct mail. The mobile app. The mobile app and the program both offer advertising opportunities pre-event. I encourage you to think about your ad. Now, I'm going to warn you here. Telling people that you're at booth 342, yeah, okay, you can do it. It's not that effective, right? People gloss over it. You probably all do it when you go to a show. So if you're going to put in an ad, talk about something distinctive, maybe a product launch, maybe it's an expert you're going to have in the booth, maybe it's new functionality of the product. Make it relevant. Make it something that the attendee is genuinely interested in. Email, always effective. Do think about when to blast and what you're including. Don't make it overly text heavy. A lot of folks are going with video embedded email these days, so think about how you're going to structure that email so they don't just delete it. Website banner ads. This is something Pittcon also can help you with, providing banner ads on your website to help raise awareness of your presence at Pittcon. LinkedIn. So a lot of people use LinkedIn today, and there are a lot of groups. We've listed a number of groups, from Pharma IQ to Food Science, ASIO Network to Nanotechnology Zone. Here's my warning. Don't tell people you're going to Pittcon in your booth 342. Nobody wants to know that, right? They want to know that you are participating in the discussion of these groups. You've got something to add that's genuinely interesting and informative and not promotional. But I do encourage you to go into LinkedIn groups and do participate in those conversations, ask questions, and then with good authenticity, do weave in the fact that you will be at Pittcon in 2017 and that you're happy to share more information there. Press releases. Don't forget, and we'll talk about press conferences in a minute, there's an opportunity to have a platform. Press releases are still valuable these days, notwithstanding all the social media, so do think about the release you might make. Again, don't make it promotional, make it substantive. Make sure that you are thinking about Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, other social media. And then do bear in mind that Pittcon does provide 4 free guest codes for folks to come for 10 by 10. So take advantage of those tools because they are offered by the organizer. One other thing I'll say about pre-show. you can imagine when Pittcon launches the program of their speakers, there's a spike in conversation. When there's an early bird deadline, there's a spike in conversation. Be part of the conversation. Be involved. There's a guy named David Meerman Scott who's an expert on social media, and he gave a talk about 8 weeks ago that I attended. And David gave a quote which it's been in my mind ever since. 30% of folks on both the consumer and professional side are talking in social media. What that means is if you are not participating in social media, you're missing 30% of your audience. 30%, 1 in every 3. So if you're not there, you're missing it. Really think that through. At show reminders, don't forget about sponsorships. Do take a look at the different offerings. See how that matches up with your targeting of target attendees and your messaging. Messaging, if you have cell phones, if you're providing reminders, relevant, substantive messaging, not promotional. Think about conference session engagement. How are your staff participating in sessions where it's available? How are they participating in networking? So what we always say to folks is when the staff get out of the couch in their house to go to their car or the taxi, to go to the airport, to go to Chicago for Pittcon, that's when the show starts, when they leave their house, not when they get to the booth, because there's so many other engagement places along the way. Social media I did mention, and then press conference. Do bear in mind you can definitely partner with Pittcon on holding a press conference, providing press materials. And this reminds me of another thing, and I'll remind you of this at the end. You'll have Kim's contacts, and Kim's been very good with all the resources they provide with the different webinars and the online resources. Pittcon is here to make you successful. So reach out, share your ideas, ask for feedback as a point of context. So even though I'm with GES and we run thousands of events per year, and I've headed our marketing for over 6 years, I reach out to organizers and ask them what they think of our presence. So just think back you would get from an organization like Pittcon that helps you think through how to be effective. Now, a memorable exhibiting experience. In this case, I've shared with you, these are not pictures from Pittcon, they're from another event. They are smaller booths. I just wanted to give you context. Your larger booths, tend to have the resources to put together effective experiences. Now, I'm sharing with you what I'll call the A players. You can see they're not professional pictures. This is my iPhone, so I apologize for that. But I just want to give you a couple of things to think about. Upper left-hand corner, your back walls. Simple, impactful, and some use of color. Those of you who've got loads and loads of graphics and text and whatever, people have 2.5 seconds to walk by your booth. They either get what you stand for and why you're different, or they don't. Upper right-hand corner, make meeting a clear focus. So, I have a little soapbox on some of these things, but I'll tell you one of my issues. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner versus the upper right-hand corner. The upper right-hand corner says, here's a round table, come sit and talk to us. The bottom left-hand corner, normally I'd say this is not a good situation. And I'm going to tell you guys now, I strongly discourage you from putting a table by the aisle with a chair behind it, which is what this gentleman has done. Now, the reason why I give this guy credit is because he is standing, he's the guy with the dark sport jacket and white slacks who's kind of using his hand there. That's a staffer. He's standing in front of his table on the aisle. So 2 things to be learned. 1, staff need to be engaged in the aisle. 2, push your table against the wall. Unless you are a device company or you have some compelling reason to put your table at the aisle, push against the wall or to the sides. Otherwise, it really inhibits. If you stand or sit behind your table, it inhibits engagement. And then bottom right-hand corner, create an experience. So this is a dental chair, the dental conference, and this is someone testing out a new product, sitting in the chair and being observed and getting some advice from the staffer. So you want the attendee to engage and immerse and not just pass by and either wonder what you stand for or just literally stop in, grab a little chesky and move on. And then there's other key points of your exhibit. So first of all, you've got about 2.5 seconds to form an impression. People either get what you stand for, they get why it matters, or they don't. And if they don't, they'll pass right by. It is amazing the amount of traffic that goes by a booth. If you were to capture half the folks that pass by your booth, your results will be exponentially better. But also, your average booth interaction is about 2.5 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes. So you've got to make sure that you're doing all the right things to engage and inform people to move the needle, right? So keep the exhibit open as possible. The only exception to that rule is if there's only 50 target attendees and you give them VIP invitations and you tell them, I'm closing off the booth and only opening it for you, then otherwise keep it open. Don't place tables on the carpet line. So I mentioned that. Don't place tables by the aisle. Do display brochures in the back of the exhibit. Why? Because you don't want people to grab your stuff and run. You want them to engage with you. This one on the bottom on the left-hand side, this is maybe seem a little odd to you, but this is something that's based on another GES offer, which is video measurement and Wi-Fi measurement. And what we have found since we started the service in 2006, and now 10 years in, is you do not want to have a highly contrasting carpet with the aisle. What do I mean by that? If the aisle of the show is gray or dark blue, you do not want a bright white carpet. Why? Because, and it's hard to describe why. I can just tell you the results. We believe that people have a mental barrier crossing from a dark to a highly contrasting light color, that it feels like it's entering a new zone. Some folks will put a highly contrasting carpet in the middle of their booth. We see the same dynamic. People will walk along the edge of the gray carpet and will not cross into the white area or the yellow area. It doesn't mean that nobody will. Some people will. But when you look compared to other exhibitors, they get disproportionately lower traffic because of the contrast. Graphics. Use minimal copy along with graphics. Minimal copy is the key word. I take pictures all the time. What works in an ad in a magazine does not work on a back wall. It does not work on signage in your booth. Don't write too much copy. People aren't only spending seconds watching. They need to understand the idea and then move on. And by the way, you can use video. Be careful on the pace of your video. Be careful of text on video, and make sure that the person on the video is articulating things clearly. Do use the back wall to attract attention. So you definitely want to show if your product is something people would recognize, or it's a new product or something different, you want to say that. You just don't want to describe all the attributes of the product. Do that in person. And then don't overload the back wall with information. Now, another way to look at this, besides giving you advice, is telling you how we evaluate exhibits. So I probably go to 10 or 15 shows a year at least, and I do exhibit audits. And we audit on 7 dimensions: brand visibility, approachability, wayfinding, client journey, product service engagement, messaging, and staff engagement. And in a kind of sharing the secrets of success, this is the exact, this isn't the form we use, but this is the exact criteria that we use. So let me walk you through this. And you'll have access to this later as the video, and if you're interested, you can send me a note and I can send you the actual form we use. So we use a form, and for each of these criteria, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 5 is strong, 1 is weak. And so we evaluate each exhibit. We don't go in the exhibit, by the way. We're not a secret shopper in the sense of we do that as well. But when we do the exhibit audit, we're looking 10 to 15 feet away from the booth. In one case, in one criteria, about it's 100 feet away. So in other words, the first thing, which is brand visibility, has 3 components to it. One is when we stand across the trade show hall and we look at least 100 feet away. The second is as we're walking down the aisle and we're looking 10 feet away. We're trying to figure out at 100 feet, do you have some signage? If you can do a hanging sign, do you have signage that's visible? Can I figure out how to get to you or where you are? 10 feet, what I'm trying to figure out is, as I'm walking the aisle, do I know it's you? I mean, it sounds kind of corny, but you'd be surprised at the number of companies that don't have a simple brand, that it's Acme Corporation whose booth I'm passing by, and therefore it's easy to just slip by and not see it. 1 feet is when I'm standing in front of a graphic. I can look at the graphic of what you offer, your benefits, but the question is, do I associate your brand with that? Now, some of you may have a bundle of brands or family of brands. You'll have to think about the relative hierarchy and which ones you want to emphasize. I would caution you not to include your cluster of brands on every piece of visual that you have, because it creates more visual information and complexity for the attendee. They might just walk by. So brand visibility is all about being visible, standing out, reinforcing the brand, and making it easy to wayfind. Okay? On approachability. So one thing is your entry is clearly demarcated. Some folks don't have a clear entry point. Now, sometimes it's very open. I understand that. But sometimes it's kind of like, I think I can walk over here, maybe over there, but it's not really clear. Now, a bigger issue has to do with why would people walk in? do you have something simple and easy to show them? What they want to learn more than anything else is what's new. So if you don't have what's new that's clearly visible to them and in a way that they want to step in, then you're going to miss the opportunity. And the third piece is a warning. Don't have your staff with their shirts lined up blocking the entrance. We take lots of pictures like that. They're not good pictures. You want your staff to be spaced out. If they want to talk to each other, they should go have breakfast together before the day begins. They can have drinks at 10 o'clock at night. When they're at the show, they're there to welcome the attendees, not to talk to each other. Wayfinding. Is it easy to find what I'm looking for? That's what that's all about. So if you have multiple products or multiple services, I want to get to what I want to see. Please make it easy for me. Now, some exhibitors do have a journey, meaning I want to bring you in, I want to talk you through and hand you off different staff and give you an experience. Not everybody has that, but you want to look at what is the experience at the booth. You also want to think about what is the experience in the city, at the show, at the networking and the education sessions, in the booth, and then beyond. So think of the whole experience of the attendee and in addition to the booth experience. Product and service engagement. So is it client-centric? Are you focusing on the benefits to the client as opposed to just what the product does? So we look for those type of clues. And then the messaging. Is it compelling, right? Does it really sharpen who you are and what you stand for? Or is it just a lot of words? And is it visually appropriate? Not too much, not too little, but enough for people to digest and understand. And then there's give-get. So give-get's a really important concept. That's why we do this separately. And of course, I'm going to come to staff in a minute. Give-get. Do not give anything away at this show unless you get something for it. And yes, that goes down to the mints and all the little things right in front of your desk. It really should be you are giving them an experience, you are giving them information and helping them advance their business. You should get information from them, who they are, what their interests are, feedback about your company. So it is a clear give-get. So no free giveaways. This is not a free interaction. You're investing time. You have stakeholders. You want to make sure you're getting insights that you can use to accelerate your business and prove the value of the investment. And then there's staff. I know I said it before. I'm saying it again. Pick the right staff. Second thing, if you have a good amount of staff, you're bringing an executive in from the company, the biggest red flag for me is when the trade show manager kicks off training instead of the C-level executive. The most senior person in the organization should kick off training. And their message should be, we're investing a whole lot of money in this. We're hoping for good success and acceleration. I expect you to be on. And that's the message you need. Make sure the staff understand the objectives that you've crafted and the strategy, as well as the entire attendee experience. I generally recommend that you do a staff briefing 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance of the show. Make it no more than 30 minutes. Don't go into the gory details. Give them a high level what you're trying to achieve. Provide them a briefing book, unless you're in a 10 by 10 or 10 by 20, you just don't have that many staff. Give them a little briefing book on the logistics of the conference, on cell phones of their peers, as well as the key elements of your participation in the show, from sponsorships to speaking slots to networking to the exhibit experience. If staff cannot really contribute or commit, dismiss them. It is better to have someone setting appointments in their hotel room than sitting on the show floor not paying attention to the attendees. And then really make attendance a privilege, not a requirement, meaning if people say, well, just get the people in Chicago because they're local, that's not good enough for me. You're making an investment of too many thousands of dollars not to bring the right people to have the right success. And then you can see, you want to make sure that staff are easily identified. This is a big issue we do see a lot of, which is I can see a lot of people at your booth. I can't figure out who the staff is. And that's a problem, because if I only have 2.5 minutes, I don't want to try to fumble around to figure out who the right person is to talk to. Train them on open-ended question engagement. In other words, asking open-ended questions to spark discussion as opposed to, how are things going today? Good. Good means I'm going to pass right by your booth. And make sure your staff really reinforce the theme and messaging that you have with an attendee focus. And that brings me to the whole idea of this pull-through strategy, right? It is something that starts well before. So this is a good time right now to think about what happened last year in 16, what you're hoping to achieve in 17, how do you define success, and then thinking about all of these elements. You can see all of the tactics where it says attendee experience, and then to the right of that, the direct mail, the email blast, the hotel drop, the event, the parties, sponsorships, traffic builder at the show, staff engagement, the experience. So you can see the tactics. Bear in mind the business results down below. You shouldn't be engaging in a tactic that doesn't drive a business result because you are the CEO, you are running a business. The other thing I will tell you that I have done, which I found a lot of success on, is when I'm preparing for a show, in addition to my objectives, I will go to what I call my quiet place. So I have a quiet place at home. And I write a quote that my target attendee would give to an interviewer 3 weeks after Pittcon about what it was like to be interacting with my staff pre-show, at show, post-show. So let me say that one more time. It's envisioning that an interviewer says to the target attendee, what was it like interacting with Acme Company at Pittcon 17? And then I write the quote that I want the attendee to have that they give the interviewer. And I edit that quote. It takes me 2 or 3 versions before I'm happy with the quote that they would give that imaginary interviewer. And then that quote encapsulates the experience I'm trying to create. The quote doesn't stay the same. It changes every year, but it helps guide where I'm going with the experience. And then there are all the different ways to do the experience. So this is a campaign that we did for a company that was trying to launch a new brand, new product. And so we offered, this is in Las Vegas, we offered actually a free shuttle bus service from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas to the Mandalay Bay and Delano and Four Seasons complex, which is where the show took place. And the reason why we did that is, for those of you who've been to Las Vegas, you probably know, arriving at McCarran in Terminal 1, the taxiing line can be a total and utter nightmare. Nobody wants to wait in it. So we really try to find a pain point for the attendees and give them an activity that would help them and make them feel valued. In this case, we also gave them a certain time frame for them to take advantage of the buses because we couldn't afford to have buses on call 24 hours a day. As part of the launch, we did a whole slew of tactics, and a lot of these touch back to the tactics we talked about with Pittcon. So magazine ads and email. We had a party at the Beatles Revolution Lounge. We had branded buses. We had an EG Favorites Guide to Las Vegas handout. So if you've been to Pittcon before, if you've been to Chicago before, do a secret guide to Pittcon and Chicago. We had a list of speakers that we recommended, branded water, lots of different tactics, but you can see we wanted to optimize points. Now, I'm not saying that you have the budget to do all this. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that think about a couple of relevant touch points and then optimize them, and do take advantage of the free tools from Pittcon. And then there's bloggers. So one thing to think about, because some of you will say, geez, I don't have budget for any of this. David, well, what can I do here? So there are bloggers. There are people who write about the industry. They're active in the LinkedIn groups. They might blog articles. They might be writers for different trade magazines. Think about who those people are. How do they relate to your product? They're enthusiasts. They have a following. And how can you treat them differently? So if you know of bloggers who are coming to Pittcon or folks who cover your sector, do identify them. Do think about how you're going to connect with them. And then don't treat them like traditional medium. Give them a personalized invite. Ask them to come and join you for an exclusive Q&A sit-down. Tell them you'd like to meet them at the booth and show them your new products and services. Make them feel important. Give them access to fresh and original content. I'll tell you a little story. This is, make them feel like a VIP. So what you're seeing here, these pictures here are from an exhibition that GES runs called Harry Potter the Exhibition. It's based on the Harry Potter movies. Now, Harry Potter is a very successful franchise. And when we launched our tour about 7 years ago, we wanted to really create a buzz. There are 2 ways to do this. One, to do the traditional press conference, launch, a couple of actors, and we did that. We did that at the Museum of Science and Industry at 9 a.m. on a given day. But here's the thing we did. We went out, we spent some money to identify all of the most influential bloggers on Harry Potter. We identified the top 50 bloggers. We sent them an email notice of a special announcement from Harry Potter and Warner Brothers and GES that was on midnight, the night before the launch that we were doing at the Museum of Science and Industry. And at midnight, we gave those folks a special video and a special online Q&A about the forthcoming exhibition. That was at midnight the night before. When the normal press woke up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning on that day, They woke up to thousands, in fact, millions of tweets already about the Harry Potter exhibition. So we created anticipation by reaching to the bloggers and leveraging their social presence to accelerate news about our presence. Same concept. And you can do this on a much more economical basis. You don't have to do the social media listening. Go look at Twitter. Go look at LinkedIn groups. Who is active? Who comes to the conference? Talk to Pittcon. They may have some perspectives as well on people you can target. And then the post-show checklist. So you probably have heard this data point many times before. 80% of leads never followed up upon. All I can tell you is if you are not planning to follow up on your leads, and Pittcon may kill me for saying this, but don't go to the show if you're not going to follow up on your leads. You're making an investment. This is your success. It's your business success. You're making an investment. You need to follow up on the leads. Also analyze your sales or your leads activity. What did you get out of this? Look for the post-conference attendee list from Pittcon. Make sure you arrange the post-show follow-up. Make sure you review your bill. Make sure you complete your post-conference survey. And then look for the exhibitor early bird registration for the following year. So make sure that you are working as hard or harder post-show as you are pre-show. Now, for exhibitor online ordering, the site is not yet available. It will become available in mid-November. This picture is from last year's show, so at last year's conference. The 2017 conference will go live in mid-November. This is called the Espresso site, but it's a site where you can order all of your services for your presence at Pittcon 2017. And just a couple of other exhibitor tips. So one, in addition to Pittcon, GES is your partner. We want to answer your questions and make it easy for you. So do call our National Service Center, which is open during business hours from 6 a.m. In Eastern Time all the way through to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. So we cover the full gamut of times and can answer any questions that you have. The material online provides the booth guidelines, your key dates. It has the advanced to warehouse information about shipping your properties so that we can get them into the show for you. There's the discount deadline to save you money. That's February 8th. We recommend that you load that into your Outlook calendar, whatever calendar you use. And bear in mind, we can do everything turnkey for you. The most frequently ordered items are material handling, things like carpet, furniture, turnkey booths, electrical, and then all sorts of different labor, from hanging labor to install, dismantle labor. McCormick Place, which is the Chicago Convention Center, does provide food and beverage and internet services, and other services like floral, security, and audiovisual are also provided. All of this will be accessible through the online ordering site, which will go live in mid-November. So just watch for that email that tells you the site's gone live. I would recommend today you go into your calendar and load up February 8th as the day to bear in mind for your discounted price deadline to save you money. A couple other things to think about. On the freight side of things, we do provide a service called Transportation Plus that has a number of advantages for GES to provide your logistics. Second thing here, so a number of people do call our National Service Center, but I'll tell you the fastest growing interaction we've had with folks is using online chat. Our online chat is also open throughout the day, throughout the various time zones. And chat, we find there's been a massive growth in the use of chat. I highly recommend using chat. Not that our telephone reps aren't as good as the chat folks. It's just that we find that folks really like the convenience. When you're online trying to order, you have questions, you can use chat. If you're not within range of your phone, or you don't want to wear your headset, whatever, you can just go on chat and go back and forth. We're happy to provide answers to your questions. Be sure you keep your shipping information with you at the show, so we can the carrier and the tracking number, so we can help support that. Keep safety in mind, right? Making sure you've got a safe show, a safe booth, a safe interaction, trained staff. And then, just to reiterate, use GES as your resource. Do ask us questions. Do get online and ask to chat with us. Make sure you're not waiting until the last week or the last couple of days to figure things out. You really want to think through now. And I know a lot of you have other shows, other activities. I think the key here is the more pre-planning you can do during those quiet periods right now as you think through the whole experience we talked through earlier in this webinar, the better you'll be later when you're really in execution mode. And with that, I'm going to open the lines. I do want to reiterate Kim Palastro at Pittcon is here to help you in addition to GES. Do feel free to call Kim and the staff at Pittcon. And then please bear in mind that if you have any other questions, you're looking for additional information, to go on the Pittcon website. There's a plethora of information. There are videos, there's other webinars, there are other upcoming webinars. Do take advantage of these resources. At the end of the day, we all want you to be successful. We want you to derive the kind of results you're seeking, and we want to help you understand the best ways to achieve that. I'll just say again, I've talked through a number of free tools today. I urge you to use those tools. I urge you to look at what we can offer at GES to help you be successful on the floor and even doing the marketing campaigns in advance. And certainly for this webinar, if you have any additional questions, I want to make sure we address those so that you have a roadmap for your success in March. So I'm going to close out before we open the lines here with one quick quote from our friend Steve Jobs. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean, to make it simple, but it's worth it in the end because once you get there, you can move mountains. So keep it simple and put the time in, and it will pay off for you in spades come March of next year. So with that, Kim, I think we should open the lines and see if there are any other questions that I can answer for folks and make sure that we give you the tools you need to be successful.
Yes, please. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat or in your questions box. I just have one so far, and I can answer that for you. The presentation, it will be available online on our website. And I think David said he was going to make the slides available to us as well. So you could rewatch the video of the presentation, share it with your colleagues, your staff members, whoever you'd like, and that should be up shortly. We usually try to get that up in the next couple of days. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in.
Sounds like people may be in good shape. Let me do this. I will keep Kim's number and email up here for conference questions. I have my Twitter down below if you want to track. I do a lot of spread a lot of good practices in both the face-to-face exhibition space and being strategic. So feel free to use us as a resource as much as possible for your success.
Perfect. All right.
Well, thank you very much, Kim. Thank you very much to Pittcon, and thank you all for listening. And do spread the word with others if they want to see the video and the slides. And if you have any other questions, please let us know. Thank you very much. We'll give you a couple minutes back for your day.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy.